everyone, it's Laura from Crafty Not Shifty, and today I have my 10 cards 1 kit featuring the limited edition Valentines kit from Love from Lizi. And for this very first card I'm making a larger than usual card, so this one actually measures 6 by 8. So I've cut 2 pieces of cardstock down, both 8 inches, one of them is 6 inches wide and one of them 6.5, and that 6.5 piece I'm just going ahead and scoring at the 6-inch mark, and I'm going to use that extra 1/2 inch flap to create the hinge for this card. Obviously if you had a large enough piece of paper you wouldn't need to do this, you could just go ahead and cut it out to the right size and score it down the middle, but I didn't, so this is a way to kind of make it work with your regular size cardstock. So I'm applying double-sided sticky tape along that flap, and then once I get that edge up I'll go ahead and stick those 2 pieces together, and that will create my card base that overall will measure 6 by 8. So once I've got that created, I'll go and add some tape runner all over the front of the card, and then all I'll need to do is place down the cut apart piece. So that piece on the side there, that 6 by 8 piece, actually comes from the cut apart sheet, and I could have cut this down and made it smaller and made a smaller size card, but I thought it was really lovely to keep it as this extra large card here. So the rest of the cards in this video for the most part will be 4.25 by 5.5, but I just thought it was fun to have this kind of extra large one. Okay, so I started to cut apart this tag here, and then I realised I was going to want some dimension around this tag anyway, so before I cut it out I stuck it down to a piece of craft foam, and then I'm just going around kind of fussy cutting the tag and the craft foam at the same time, and then that way I've got perfect even dimension behind this tag when I come to stick it down on the card. So for something extra on this, I decided to use something that I've not used for a long time. This is the We Are Memory Keepers, I believe it's called a crocodile, I hope that's right, and I'm just punching some holes out of either side of the tag, and then I'm adding these little metal kind of eyelets that you just set by placing it into the centre of this tool and squeezing it together, and they're kind of like metal, and it bends around the back and that kind of seals it into place, so I hope that makes sense. So I'm just popping one into either of those holes, each of those holes that I've created, and then just pressing it to seal them together. And then I'll apply some more adhesive to the back of this, and then I'll go ahead and centre it up inside that circle. So just to add a little bit more interest to the background, I decided to use my Wink of Stella glitter pen to add some glitter all over the roses, and I'll try and make sure to link to everything in the description below as well, or over on my blog. So a really quick and easy card for this first one. To be honest, most of the cards in this video, they are kind of really quick and easy. I tried to stick to just using the supplies in the kit as well, so if you have this kit it should be really easy to recreate them. So I've got another cut apart here. This one says True Love, and it's on kind of a brown background, so I thought it paired well with the shimmery kind of bronze cardstock that was included. If you haven't seen everything that's included in this kit, I do have an unboxing video over on my channel as well, and I'll leave a link to that in the description also. So I'm trimming this down and leaving an even amount of the bronze cardstock sticking out of the sides, and then applying some adhesive onto another card base and applying one of those 6x6 pattern papers again. And this one's really nice, it's got kind of almost like a studs pattern on the background. I just thought it all paired really nicely together. So I've centered that up and stuck it down at an angle, and that's it for the second card. So onto card 3 now, and again I'm starting by applying adhesive onto my card base. All of these card bases are made using some extra cardstock from my stash because I didn't want to use those kind of specialty cardstocks as my card base. I wanted to keep those as elements on the cards instead. So all of the white cardstock you see me using is kind of extras that I had. So I've stuck down a piece of pattern paper, and then I have another piece that I'm just kind of centering up a particular section. Because there's all of these words in the background, I wanted to make sure that some of the words could be read in full, and I decided to use one of those love kind of words, I guess, as my focal point and make sure that was in the centre of the piece that I cut out. So I applied some tape runner all over the back of this, and then applied that using the lines on the grid mat, on my grid mat, just to help me kind of centre that up, and then I trimmed off the extra bits hanging over the top and the bottom. So this is one of the stamps from the kit, and I've just stamped that down in the bottom left hand corner, and it just reads "Love is all we need." So now I've got one of the long stickers, again this was included in the kit, and I've just stuck that down just to kind of accent that patterned piece of paper on the front there, and then I'm just snipping off any of the extra. So I didn't peel that all the way off the back of my sticker sheet because I knew it would be a bit of a nightmare to stick it back down. So I've applied some of my favourite adhesive, multi-medium in the matte finish, and I'm using that to apply some of my sequins, and I'm just using a pick-up pencil to help me apply those, and I'm mostly focusing on using kind of the soft cream colours out of that sequin mix. So I'm just picking out the colours that I want and placing those down all over the background of this card. You could just mix up those colours, all of them would work really nicely, but I decided to keep the colours kind of in this pinky tone. So I thought the card needed just something else in the top right hand corner, so I took some of the shimmery pink cardstock and die cut this kind of heart pattern that's got all of these little pieces cut out, and I decided to use that on its own. Later on you'll see me use both of the dies together. Okay, so that's it for card 3. So on to card 4, again I'm starting by applying adhesive to my card base, and then I'm going to lay a piece of the pattern paper over the top. I really like this piece. It reminds me of kind of like Laura Ashley wallpaper. I think it's got that kind of feel to it. So again, I'm using my Fiskars trimmer. I tend to favour this trimmer whenever I'm doing videos because it's smaller and it fits nicely in my kind of screen space. And you might notice I've put a little mark on the left hand side. The measurements on the trimmer only go up to 5 inches, but there is enough room there for you to kind of measure out your own 5.5 inch measurement. So because I mostly make 5.5 by 4.25 cards, it works perfectly for me. So next up, I've trimmed a thin strip of another piece of paper and applied some adhesive to the back of it, and again I'm just going to trim off the excess using my trimmer. You don't have to use a trimmer for this, you could definitely just use your scissors, but because I have my trimmer laid out on my desk, I find it easier just to grab that and get nice straight edges. So here's some more of that pink shimmer cardstock, and I've applied some double-sided sticky tape to the back, and I'm just cutting really narrow thin strips using my trimmer, and this will just help me create really thin accent pieces of paper for the background. I could of course have mounted this entire piece onto the pink paper and just left a little bit in the background, but if you're only having the accent kind of highlight on 2 sides of the card, I prefer to do it this way because that way you don't waste a whole bunch of the cardstock in the background. And I've got another example of how to save kind of more of your specialty cardstocks in one of the cards that's coming up. So again, I've got another one of those stickers, and I'm applying the little eyelets and just using my crocodile to set those into place. So this is completely sticky, so I'm trying my best not to touch it too much and rub off that stick. And then once I've got both of those eyelets set, I'll just place that down in the centre of my card and press it down firmly, and that will hold it in place even with the extra thickness of those kind of metal eyelets that I've just added. So for this next card, I'm using another one of the cut apart pieces, and this isn't perfectly sized for my card, but I decided to trim off the green strip on the side and then apply some adhesive to the back, and then place it down on a 4.25 by 5.5 note card. And then I trimmed off the excess that ran along the bottom, and then I did think about trimming off the excess for the side, but I decided instead to bring back in that piece that I just cut off, so that green pattern piece, and apply some adhesive onto that and then lay that over the top, so it will cover up some of the blue border, but it will also hide the white edge of the card where it's too big. So there is kind of that pattern there of the roses, but that's going to be covered up with another piece of cardstock that I'm going to stick down. Oh, not cardstock, sorry, pattern paper. I think I've made that mistake a lot in this video. I apologise anytime where I've been using paper and I've called it cardstock, so sorry if I've done that. So I've just stuck a piece down over the top there, and I think this is actually just a narrow strip from one of the 6x6 pieces. So I have this Be Mine sticker, and I know I want to use this, but I'm not ready to stick it down, so I've just placed that on some sticker release paper that I happen to have on my desk from using my Xyron machine, and that will enable me to just peel that up with no problem. So I'm using some of these flag banners, and I'm sticking a few of those down the side of the card just as an extra accent. And I actually got these, I believe I got these, no, I didn't get these as an add-on, these were actually included in the kit for the Valentine's kit. I got some similar flag buttons for add-ons to my January kit. So I'm taking another one of those pieces of double-sided, or sorry, those self-adhesive shimmer papers that I trimmed earlier on. And I'm just pressing that down and again just trimming off the excess, just to add something a little bit different to the background because this card is fairly simple. So I decided instead of applying the sticker flat, I used some double-sided foam squares, and I'm just peeling off the release paper from those and then placing that down on the card. I decided just to add one more thing to this card and to use some of my transparent Nuvo drops. So they look kind of milky at the moment, but when they dry they are almost completely transparent, but just with a tint of a grey colour. So you'll see that a little bit more clearly in the final clip of all of my cards, and also in the photos over on my blog or the pictures on my Instagram page as well. Okay, so for this card, I knew I wanted to use that kind of pearly, shimmery pink cardstock, and I wanted that to cover the entire background of my card, but I knew I was going to be sticking a piece of pattern paper over the top. So I went ahead and used my craft knife and my ruler just to cut out the centre of this piece. And this was that tip that I was talking about earlier, when you don't want to kind of use too much of your specialty cardstock in the background of a card or a project that you're working on. You can, within reason, just kind of go ahead and cut out the centre and then use that for a different part of your project or on a different project entirely. So I stuck that down, and then I have my piece of patterned paper that I've trimmed to size to fit inside this, and I've cut this to be slightly smaller so you can see just an outside hint of that pink paper in the background there. So I'm just carefully lining that up. I like to start with one corner and kind of get that lined up and then press it down. Usually that works quite well for me, but it's definitely a practice makes perfect type of a situation, and one of the best tips I think is to use an adhesive that's a little bit forgiving the very first second you stick it down. You want something that's going to hold firmly but also kind of let you peel it up if you do make a mistake. So I used the inside pieces of that pink paper to back a couple more of my cut parts, and I've stuck down 2 of the love sentiments flat to the card, and then I've popped up always and forever. So then just to add another something extra to this, I've got my glossy accents, and I'm just covering the roses on that sticker in the centre. Okay, so here I've got my square card, and for this one I am actually using the specialty paper as my card base. I think because it's such a simple card, it was nice to have that something extra of the inside of the card being that kind of specialty shimmer paper as well. So I've got this 4x4, I believe it's 4x4, cut apart, or slightly smaller than 4x4, as I believe the card base is 4x4. So I've put some double-sided sticky tape on the back here, and I've just folded back a tiny tab at the top and the bottom, so not all of that is sticky yet, so it enables me to place this down and then peel off the backing, so I can be sure that that's perfectly centered. So then just to add one more thing to this, I've got again my Nuvo drops, and I'm just applying a small droplet onto each of the kind of rivets at the side of that tag there, in a similar way to how on some of the cards I've used my crocodile to use the eyelets. So that just adds some dimension and some shine using that Nuvo. Okay, so this card, I really like this one. This uses, again, a huge piece of the blue specialty paper, and this die from Simon Says Stamp, I believe it's called the Falling Stars die, and it just cuts apart all of these tiny little stars in your background, so when you place this onto a different coloured cardstock or card base, it allows that colour to show through and really highlight where all of those stars are. So that's what I'm doing just now. I'm applying some adhesive to the back of this. And I'll go ahead and lay that down on my card base and stick that down in place. Now you'll notice there's a small amount of the white cardstock sticking out at the top and the bottom. I mustn't have been very precise with my cutting, but no problem, I just went ahead and trimmed off the edges. So now I've got this black cardstock, and again this is another one of the pearlized cardstocks that came in the kit, and I'm using an anti-static powder tool just to remove any of the grease or the static from the surface of this, because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing, and I'm using white embossing powder with one of the sentiments that came in the stamp set. And yeah, white on black, it's not very forgiving, so you want to be careful and use that anti-static powder tool, because it will help the powder only stick where you want it to. So once you've heat set the embossing powder, you can just go ahead and brush off any of the excess powder that's left behind. So I've got some more of the cardstock, and I'm using both of the dies this time. I'm using the intricate heart and also the full heart, and once I've got both of those cut, I can just stick one on top of the other, and it will allow the black to show through anywhere where there's a cut apart piece on this heart. I've trimmed up that sentiment strip to fit nicely across the front of the card and just stuck that down using some Tombow glue. And then I'm applying that same glue onto the back of the heart, just being careful to only apply it where the heart will be touching that sentiment strip. And I really like the way it just kind of hangs off the edge, and yet it's got that black in the background, so it looks like it all belongs as one piece. So for this next card, I'm sticking with that same black kind of pearlized shimmery specialty cardstock, and I've cut apart a piece here that I'm going to use on the front of a card, and I'm applying this sticker from the sticker sheet. And I just use the grid lines there to help me centre that up, and then I'm going to lay that down on my card nice and central and make two fine pencil lines, one at the top of this, and again I'm just fussing around trying to make sure this is centred using the squares on my background piece here. And then I'll go ahead and apply those two pencil lines. Draw, that was a bit fancy. Yep, draw those pencil lines. And then I'm going to bring in one of the longer stamps and just ink that up in some black ink. And I've had to edit part of this out because my head kind of got in the way, but I made sure to line the top of the stamp up with the pencil lines. And then that means when I stick this piece down, it will line up perfectly. So I applied double-sided sticky tape to this piece and then stuck it down to some craft foam, the same as I have in some of the other cards that I've made. I just wanted some nice even raised dimension in the background, and that really helps with larger pieces like this for if you're sending them through the post and you don't want them to get kind of squished and kind of smushed down. It really helps to have that even dimension, and they definitely hold up a little bit better and make sure they arrive looking how they were intended to look. So I stuck that down to the card base, and that card is finished. So for this one, I wanted to keep the background more plain. For a lot of these cards I've covered up a lot of the background, but for this one I just wanted to use a small piece of the pattern paper in the background. And I'm just figuring out exactly where I want that and then pressing that down. And then I've got a few of the cut apart pieces. I was trying to decide which one to use, and I decided to use this one that's laid down on the top of my card already. It's not actually stuck down, I was just laying it down trying to figure out where I wanted everything. And then I've got this frame sticker and also the sentiment that fits inside, and rather than sticking that flat down I decided again to use foam squares. And so I stuck those all over the back, peeled off the backing, and then just lined that up exactly inside that frame where it's supposed to be. So I applied some glue onto the back of the cut apart and then just placed that down in the centre of the card. And then to finish it off I decided to add a couple more buttons. So this one here has got a sentiment on it, it says love. And then I decided to add one of the pink kind of regular shaped buttons to the card as well. To finish this off, I brought in a few gems from my stash, and I just applied one into each of the corners of that frame piece there, just to add something a little bit more interesting to this rather simple card. And that's it, that's all 10 of the cards finished for today's video. I had so many supplies left over, so I'm really interested to see what everybody else kind of comes up with this kit as well. So I'm going to bring each of those cards back on screen. You might notice that my nail varnish has magically changed colour. I forgot to film this straight after I'd finished making the cards, so unfortunately I am bringing them back on screen in a different order to the order that I made them. Hopefully that doesn't confuse anyone. As always, please let me know which one was your favourite in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, I'd love to have you subscribe to my channel, so you can go ahead and hit the subscribe button, or if you wait to the very end of the video, you'll be able to see a logo and you can just click on that logo and you'll automatically subscribe. Okay, so on screen right now there are a couple more videos that I think you might enjoy. If you haven't already seen them, then go ahead and click on the thumbnails and that will take you straight through to the videos. You can also click on that logo I was just talking about and that will subscribe you to the channel that you're currently watching. And that's it, that's all from me for today. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.